Owen Brooks was broke. But it wasn't just money. He was broke in dreams, in energy, in willpower. He woke up tired, went to bed frustrated, looked in the mirror and saw someone pretending to be in control. But deep down he was lost. People told him to be patient. Things will turn around. God knows what he's doing. But deep down, Owen knew nothing would change unless he did. He didn't want to be rich to show off. He wanted peace. He wanted freedom. He wanted to stop counting pennies and start counting possibilities. But the real world doesn't go easy on those who wait too long. And when everything came crashing down, he finally understood. The most dangerous kind of poverty is mental poverty. This video isn't about money. It's about waking up, about not settling anymore, about choosing to ditch a poor mindset and start thinking like an adult, like a builder, like a decision maker, like Owen chose to be. And if you're here reading this, maybe it's your time too. It happened on a Tuesday, but it could have been any day really, because every day felt the same. Owen Brooks woke up late, skipped breakfast, and rushed out to the job he hated, all for a paycheck that barely covered his debt. That day, he came home and found 3 things on the table: an overdue bill, a bank notice, and a collection letter. No surprises, just another reminder that he was running out of options. He dropped his backpack on the floor, collapsed on the couch, and for the first time in weeks, he sat in silence. No phone, no TV, just him and his thoughts. And that's when it hit him. He realized he wasn't really living. He was wearing out, like each day took a piece of him and gave nothing back. Owen had always been afraid of falling, but right then he realized he was already on the ground, and no one was coming to save him. His friends were too busy. His family had no clue about the weight he was carrying. The world kept turning like he was invisible. And in the middle of that emptiness, a sentence hit his mind like lightning. If you don't change now, no one's going to change this for you. He had no money, no connections, no plan, but he had something he had never truly used before: courage. He stood up from the couch, went to the mirror, looked himself in the eyes without looking away, and said quietly, almost in a whisper, "I won't be this guy for the rest of my life." And in that moment, Owen Brooks began to be reborn. After that day, Owen didn't magically turn into someone else. He still woke up tired, still had to face the same job. The debts were still there. Nothing had changed on the outside, but on the inside, something had started. For the first time, he stopped complaining and started observing. He began to notice his thoughts. The "I can't," "this isn't for me," "I'm just not lucky" kind of stuff. Those automatic phrases that came out without thinking and were rooted in a place he didn't even know existed. Owen realized his mind was wired to lose, and that the world was just reflecting what he believed he deserved. He started staying quieter, listened more than he spoke, stopped offering opinions just to sound right. And whenever he caught himself talking like he used to, he'd stop mid-sentence, take a deep breath, think. That's the old version talking. I'm not that guy anymore. It was in the silence that Owen took his first real step. Not a course, not a book, not some mentorship, just him, finally listening to himself. He understood that real change doesn't start with action. It starts with clarity. Clarity about who you are, where you're at, and most importantly, who you don't want to be anymore. Owen still didn't have the answers, but now at least he had the right questions. A week later, Owen no longer saw things the same way. The world was still the same, but his eyes weren't. He started noticing things that used to slip by. He saw how some people only knew how to complain, how they repeated the same phrases he used to say himself. Life's hard. Money isn't for everyone. Some people are born to win and others are born to work. And for the first time, he disagreed. Owen hadn't become some blind optimist. He had just stopped repeating what he was taught without question. He began to ask himself, what if everything they taught me about success is wrong? That's when he started searching, not for money, but for mindset. He found a YouTube video talking about how to build wealth from nothing, then another one about the habits of a millionaire, then a book on the 80-20 principle and another on the power of consistency. And something inside him lit up. He still didn't know how he was going to make money, but for the first time in his life, he knew it was possible. His mind was opening, and a mind that opens never goes back to its original size. Owen realized he didn't need $1 million. He needed 1 million new ideas. And at that point, he was already richer than most, because he had started thinking like a builder, like someone who chooses, like someone creating his own path. The change felt real, but the world doesn't accept change that easily, and life started to push back. His friends began to drift away. Some said Owen was getting full of himself. Others just stopped replying altogether. At work, he started feeling out of place. He was quieter, more focused. While the others talked about sports, politics, or just complained, he just wanted to figure out how to get out of there. There were days when he actually thought, am I overdoing it? Am I just ending up alone? Even his family started to comment, you're really quiet lately, Owen. You never used to be like this. What's the rush? Trying to become a millionaire now? He listened to it all and responded with the silence of someone who knows where they're headed. But deep down it hurt, because no one talks about this part. Change hurts. It's not just about growth. It's about letting go of old versions of yourself, and sometimes letting go of people too. Owen realized that to live a new life, he'd have to give up the old one. And that meant environments, habits, and even some relationships. He didn't want to cut people off. He just didn't want to keep cutting parts of himself to fit into places where he couldn't grow. And that's when he got it. Real growth doesn't start when everything gets better. It starts when you keep going, even without support. Owen came to a simple but brutal realization. You can't change your life if you're always surrounded by the same voices. So he started paying attention. Coworkers who mocked any new idea, friends who always talked trash about successful people, people who got offended just by hearing the word money. And then it hit him. He was the average of all that. Owen didn't think he was better than anyone, but he also didn't want to be the same forever. So he started to pull away. No fights, no big speeches, just silence and direction. He stopped going out just to go out, stopped making small talk just to be polite, started using his free time to build the version of himself he wanted to become. He created a simple routine, got up a bit earlier, read a few pages every day, wrote down his goals in a notebook, swapped out random Netflix shows for videos on investments, business, and success mindset. At first, no one noticed. Then came the jokes. What, you a life coach now? You think YouTube's gonna make you rich? Owen just smiled, because he knew the world always laughs at those who start until they start to win. He didn't think the same way anymore. And when your mind changes, your body follows. Your actions shift. Your decisions get stronger. Your energy starts pointing in a new direction. Owen wasn't that stuck guy anymore. He was breaking patterns, one habit at a time. There was one night when Owen almost gave up. It was a Friday. Everyone was posting stories from bars, parties, laughs, and him alone in his room with a notebook full of goals and a head full of uncertainty. He asked himself, is this even worth it? Am I dreaming too big? Am I really growing or just isolating myself? The motivation that used to overflow now seemed to have disappeared. Videos didn't excite him like before. Reading started to feel like a chore. Fatigue kicked in, and there in the dark of his room, Owen found himself once again in front of a mirror. But this time, the question was different. Are you really going to go back to who you were, just because it's hard to become who you want to be? He stood silent, thought about everything he had already left behind, the small wins, the control he had felt for the first time over his own life. Then he remembered a quote from one of those money books. You're not paid for what you do, you're paid for the value you bring. And the first value is what you give yourself. Owen took a deep breath, closed the notebook, and went to sleep. Not like someone who gave up, but like someone who understood. Rest is also part of growth, because even the strongest doubt. But what separates the ones who make it is that even with doubt, they keep going. After that night, Owen didn't go back to who he was, but he didn't become a whole new person overnight either. He just kept going. Slower, more aware, more intentional. Motivation was no longer the fuel. Now it was about routine. It was about showing up for the version of himself that didn't exist yet, but that he believed he could become. He started organizing his days like someone building a skyscraper, one brick at a time, even if no one noticed, even if it took a while. He created a simple morning ritual. Wake up early, drink lemon water, read 10 pages, write for 15 minutes. Sometimes he did it all, sometimes just half. But what mattered was showing up, being present in his own process. Owen wasn't chasing $1 million. He was chasing control, clarity, peace. He learned to track his spending, to think before buying, to invest a little, even if it was very little. He understood that making money comes after you learn to respect money. He replaced phrases like, I need this right now, with, does this bring me closer to the life I want? Little by little, things began to shift, not on the outside, but inside. And one day, while reviewing his habits, he realized it had been weeks since he last sabotaged himself, and he hadn't even noticed. Owen was still far from being a millionaire, but now he was rich in direction. And that is where everything starts. Owen didn't get rich. He didn't show up in a luxury car. He didn't post boarding passes to Dubai. He didn't start selling some magic formula on social media, but he achieved something that no amount of money can buy: control over his own life. He woke up with purpose. He knew where he wanted to go, and more importantly, he knew who he didn't want to be anymore. The anxiety that used to control him still showed up sometimes, but now he knew how to talk to it. Fear still popped up, but it didn't run the show anymore, because now he was the one making the decisions. Owen learned that freedom doesn't start in your bank account. It starts when you stop living on autopilot. When you stop being a victim of the world and start becoming the author of your own story. Maybe you don't have a perfect plan. Maybe you're starting from scratch. But if you've got the courage to face who you are today, You've already taken the first step toward who you want to become. Owen didn't get rich, but he became something even more rare, free, and maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what you need right now.